Shivers, The Enchanted Attic by M.D. Spencer. Chapter 10. Over the next several days, life settled into a regular routine. It wasn't regular in the way life in Virginia had been regular. There, everything had been familiar. The wait at the bus stop, the route the bus took to school, their teachers, even the family's Saturday evening trip to the drive-through ice cream shop. Here, everything was unfamiliar. No school bus was coming this far off the beaten track just to pick up the two of them. So one of their parents had to drive them to school every day. That seemed to mean no more throwing spitballs at the other passengers. And on the ride home, they had to listen to all those boring parent type of questions about what they had done in school that day. I mean, Nicole thought, I've just lived through the whole school day. Why would I want to live through it again by talking about it? I went to class. What did you think I did in school? She thought that, but of course she never said it. Instead, she said nothing and tried to look as bored as she possibly could. In Virginia, Nicole and Casey had gone to different schools. Casey had been in second grade at the Robert E. Lee Elementary. Nicole had been in sixth grade in her first year at the John C. Calhoun Middle School. That was a big school with 1,000 students, much bigger than the elementary school. Nicole had just been getting used to it when their father decided it would be a great time to uproot the family and move. All for some stupid job. I mean, Nicole thought, he already works at a newspaper. What's the difference? But their father had said the Boston Globe was a bigger and better newspaper than the one he already worked at, and it had a better reputation. It's the Globe, he said, as if that meant something to her. It didn't. Here in Massachusetts, the girls would have to join classes in the middle of the school year. They would attend the same school, which ran all the way up from kindergarten through 8th grade. The day after the excursion up the secret passageway, the whole family had driven to see their new school, the Abraham Lincoln Elementary School. The girls could see it was different as soon as they drove into the parking lot. The school in Virginia had been new and fresh-looking and 1 story tall. This was an old 5-story brick building. Ivy clung to the walls. It looked as if someone had to lean out the windows and clip it, or else the leaves would have covered the glass, preventing anyone from seeing out. They stopped first at the office of the principal. He was a funny-looking man with thick hair and a huge black mustache. He reminded Nicole of a comedian she had seen on TV. The principal shook their hands, boomed out, "Welcome to Lincoln," and laughed heartily. Nicole couldn't see what the heck was so funny. Then the entire family trooped off to Casey's new classroom. The teacher introduced Casey to the class. Casey was smiling ear to ear. She was so eager to begin that she almost tripped over herself getting to her seat. Nicole's parents took her to her new classroom on the 3rd floor. The teacher, whose name was Mrs. Chestnut, had enormous front teeth like a horse. She said she was absolutely delighted to have Nicole in her class. Nicole didn't see how she could be delighted, since they'd never met before. But instead of mentioning that, she went into her polite routine, where she pinched up her face and looked serious. She spoke in sentences only 1 or 2 words long, and nodded her head each time she spoke. "Nicole," she said, and bobbed her head. "Thank you." 11. "Yes." "Thank you." The days in the new house started to become the same as each other. Gradually, daily life developed in an order, a rhythm. The girls woke up at 6:30 when it was still dark outside. They put on 5 times as many clothes as they had worn in Virginia. They ate breakfast. The weather had turned sharply colder. Casey's stream had frozen. The snow had come, and every morning the girls waded out through knee-deep drifts and freezing cold, went off to school, then came home and did a ton of homework. Life became predictable again. Nicole noticed that even the noises of the strange old house became familiar. She recognized the creaking of the boards, and the rattling of the windows, and the moaning of the trees. And as the noises became familiar, they became comforting. They were turning into old friends. Instead of keeping her awake, they helped her fall asleep. She thought that now she would have a tough time sleeping if the noises suddenly stopped, and she was forced to listen to the silence. The scritching noise in the ceiling annoyed her now and then, but she realized there had been no voices. Boards must have been groaning in the wind, and that was what she had heard. She and Casey had only thought it was voices because the passageway was so dark and weird and filled with cobwebs. Besides, the top of the stairs was such a narrow space that there probably wasn't much air in there, and the lack of oxygen had probably affected their thinking. Once, Nicole mentioned to her mother that she'd heard mice in the attic. Her mother sighed, and she said would try to remember to get mouse traps and put them up there. The way she said it made Nicole think that her mother would not be remembering any time soon. That didn't matter. Nicole was at peace with the mice. If they didn't bother her, she wouldn't bother them. She shrugged and turned away. Her father popped his head out from behind the newspaper. "You know, it's funny," he said. "From the outside, it looks as though there ought to be an attic. But I have gone over every square inch of the house, and there's absolutely no way to get to where the attic ought to be." He scrunched up his forehead the way he did when he was working on a crossword puzzle. "I can't figure it out," he said. "There may be mice in the ceiling. Probably are, in fact. But the really peculiar thing is..." He scrunched his forehead up even more. "This house doesn't have an attic."